So, Fáilte Gach Duine, thank you for being here with us this morning. Inequality is one of the key issues facing our society. Affordability and access to housing is vital if we want to live in a fair and a just society, and housing will be the most important challenge for the next government. Sinn Féin will ensure that housing will be the #1 government priority and that there will be a whole-of-government approach to solving the crisis. A Sinn Féin government will find ways to make sure that this happens and will not spend time coming up with excuses as to why it can't be done. We have the finance, we have the land and the builders to solve this crisis. What is needed is the right plan, and Sinn Féin has that plan. Sinn Féin's Affordable Homes Plan will bring home ownership back into reach for working people. It will deliver affordable homes to rent also, meaning that a home of your own will be available, one that you can afford. And it's important to say that this is the first part of a detailed housing plan which we will be launching next month, setting out how Sinn Féin would fix the housing crisis. This that we launched today is a new approach. It marks a significant change. And the key difference between Sinn Féin's Affordable Homes Plan and the Féin approach is in the number of affordable homes that will be delivered and the price at which we will deliver these affordable homes to buy and to rent. It will see the state fund and deliver 50,000 affordable homes to buy and to rent. And consider that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have only delivered less than 5,000 homes between 2020 and the end of 2024. Sinn Féin will deliver affordable homes to buy for prices between €250,000 and €300,000, and to rent at or below €1,000 a month. The Fianna Fáil Fine Gael unaffordable homes have rents of up to €1,800 a month and cost up to €500,000 to buy. This is well beyond the reach of the vast majority of workers. We can deliver homes to purchase at these prices because the state will cover the cost of land, site servicing and utility connections. This means that the purchaser pays only the price of construction. This scheme is designed for people who earn too much to qualify for council housing but cannot buy a home of their own because of the record house prices under Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Many are faced with the stark choice of paying sky-high rent and not being able to save a deposit for a house, or remaining in their parents' homes into their 30s and their 40s, and others, sadly, feel they are left with no choice but to emigrate. The lack of affordable housing is undermining efforts to continue to grow our economy and to deliver public services. Schools can't get teachers, particularly in areas like Dublin. Hospitals can't get key healthcare staff, and businesses can't get the workers that they need. So what we're saying very clearly here today is that the dream of home ownership can come back for people. Under Sinn Féin's plan, it will. That moment of getting the keys to your own secure home, walking through your own front door to a new chapter in your life, to a place that is truly your home. This is a moment that Sinn Féin is committed to delivering for you. A home where you can be settled, you can be secure and put down roots, and where you can plan ahead for your future. For people who are waiting for this moment, that hope can finally be realised under Sinn Féin's plan. We are driven by our belief that everyone deserves a good, safe, affordable home, and that when markets fail, as they have now, you need strong, decisive intervention from the state to deliver those affordable homes, and that is what we will do. Martin.
Just briefly from a rural perspective, the delivery of housing that is affordable for young couples, families and indeed older people is a serious problem across all of Ireland. The shortage of secure affordable housing is not confined to urban areas. It is a significant issue in rural Ireland and is absolutely a factor in immigration. and in rural decline across the North West. The difference in rural Ireland, and especially where I come from in County Leitrim, is that we have in many areas population decline in our rural parishes and a major shortage of housing in our towns. In the last number of Daft.ie reports, we have seen a huge increase in the year-on-year rentals across Sligo and Leitrim, for example. In fact, Sligo has been consistently well above the national average increase in rental costs. The longer this government continues to allow vulture funds and cuckoo funds to dictate housing policy, the longer our workers and families will be unable to afford housing, whether that be in the rental market or mortgaged homes. The absence of affordable housing is draining people out of many parts of rural Ireland. Not a single affordable house, not one, has been built under this government in counties Leitrim, Sligo or Mayo. Today we launch a new housing policy. What we're doing here is setting out a vision for a new sector in Irish housing, for to deliver affordable housing for everyone in every part of the country.
Okay, Owen now has a presentation to make, so...
First of all, you're very welcome to the Irish Architectural Archive. There's a beautiful exhibition next door of Rapid Architects, if you have please do. So, a couple of very introductory slides. Mary mentioned in September we'll be launching a comprehensive, detailed, fully costed alternative housing plan. It'll not only set out what we want to do, but in fine detail how we are going to do it. Just to stress, this is the first time an opposition party has ever done it. It hasn't been done before, and it's actually quite a challenge for an opposition party to do it. It's based on really extensive engagement with the sectors involved, public housing, private housing, semi-state, etc. And also it is supporting some of the key recommendations of the Housing Commission and their report that was published last month, and I met with them recently. All of the costings are from the Department of Housing, Department of Finance and the Society of Chartered Surveyors of Ireland. And what we're trying to do is give voters a very, very clear choice. They know what the government is doing, where the government is failing. We're going to set out in September in huge detail what we would do differently. At the core of the plan is the idea of a home of your own, a home that's secure, that's adequate, that's affordable. Everybody agrees that some of the independent will have seen the overall plan is 300,000 new build homes over 5 years. That's a recommendation of the Housing Commission that we support, more than double what the government will have delivered by the end of this year. That's 75,000 new build social homes, again, more than double what the government will have delivered by the end of this year. But crucially, as Mary said, 50,000 affordable homes to rent and buy. That would be more than 10 times what this government will have achieved over 5 years. But also a very significant increase in the number of private homes for owner-occupiers to buy. At the core of the plan is the idea of a dramatic increase in public home delivery, social reform, rental reform purchase, a very significant increase in owner-occupation as a consequence of less reliance on the private rental sector and ultimately a more balanced and a more stable system. In terms of the affordable housing plan, Mary mentioned that key idea of bringing home ownership back into reach for working people, as well as delivering secure and affordable homes to rent, 50,000 homes over 5 years, an average of 10,000 a year, half rental, half purchase. They will be delivered by local authorities, by approved housing bodies and community housing trusts, through direct delivery, Part 5, design and build, or turnkey, and as Mary said, for those earning too much for social housing and not enough to be able to afford market rents or house prices. The affordable purchase policy, how does it work? Well, first of all, eligibility criteria for households, singles and couples, and includes up to €90,000 annually gross. For those who don't own a home, this is not just for first-time buyers, it's for those who do not own a home or have insufficient credit or deposit to buy a market home. A lot of people currently excluded from the current government scheme. Purchase prices, we'll go through the numbers in a second, between 250 and 300,000. Key mechanism of ensuring affordability is the state either provides or pays for land, site service and utility connections, we waive development levies, and the purchaser pays for the home price of construction. The purchaser owns the home. Legally, the home is theirs to do with what they want. They can extend it subject to planning permission, pass it to their children and grandchildren in perpetuity, but the land remains public. The land is a key piece of critical public infrastructure, and the conditions for free and definite use of the land will be the property can never be in the private rental sector. If the owner, for example, has a job that takes them abroad for a period of time, it can be rented as part of a cost rental scheme under a fixed term contract. And crucially, when the person comes to sell the home, they sell it to another affordable purchaser through the affordable purchase scheme at the price they pay for it, index linked to inflation, with inflation or the cost of any home improvements that they've made to the property. And what we're trying to do, and this is a really innovative intervention into the housing system, is year on year build up a growing stock of privately owned, privately traded, but permanently affordable homes. I'm just going to talk through a couple of the slides. There's more exemplars in the book, but we just want to show you how this can be done, because some politicians on the government side say it's impossible, and it absolutely is not impossible. So the first slide I want to show you, and all of these are in the appendix in your document. This is where a local authority is delivering an affordable home on public land with private building contractor through what's called the Ship Construction Fund from the Department. And these figures are from the average cost of delivering these homes in 2023 provided for us by the Department. All in development costs, that is everything for that, on average, say 80 square metre, 2-bedroom home. As an average, it includes 1 beds, 2 beds, 3 beds. All in development costs, €309,000. The Department of Housing provides the local authority, the approved housing body, with the public housing fund contribution. This is essentially to cover and compensate for land, site servicing, and utility connections of about 61,000. Development levies are waived on average 1% at 3,000. So the purchase price, and there's a slight typo in your version, you have 245,000, it's actually 244,000. That is the price at which the household purchases. Gross household income for people purchasing it under the central bank's mortgage lending rules would be gross income of 55,000, although they have a council mortgage, they'd be able to buy it at a slightly lower gross income. So what that shows you is all in development cost of 300, sale price of 244, household income to buy at 55,000. Next one just talks about how we would do it using Part 5 with a land discount. But we also wanted to show that this is possible at the higher end of all-in delivery costs, particularly Dublin. This is one where it's a local authority delivering, it's Dunleary on their own land. You can see the purchase all-in development cost is significantly higher, 388,000, but the sales price is 268,000. But here's the top end of the market, where a local authority or an approved housing body are purchasing a property from a turnkey development. So this is when you're including the full market price of the land, developer's margin. Typically last year in Central County Council, a turnkey would have cost about €424,000. You can see by increasing the public housing fund contribution in recognition that the land costs are higher to 33% and a higher development levy waiver, you're still selling that property in South Dublin, in Clondalkin, in Lucan, in Tala at €281,000. That's accessible for a household with an income of 63,000. So no matter which of the versions you look at, lower cost direct delivery, Part 5 delivery, higher cost direct delivery, or turnkey, we're able to ensure that no matter what the older development costs, we net out land and land-related costs, we're selling significantly lower. On the affordable rental eligibility criteria, we're not proposing to change the criteria currently in place. Net income, so this is after tax, 66,000 for singles or couples in Dublin, 59,000 elsewhere. This is obviously for those with lifetime rental while saving a deposit, or in fact folks who are approaching pension age living in the private rental sector wouldn't be able to afford market rents on an occupational pension. Over the lifetime, the property rents cover the full economic cost of finance, delivery and maintenance. The big challenge here is the way in which government is structuring cost rental schemes is making the rents enormously unaffordable. There's a growing cohort of people for whom cost rental was designed, not eligible for social housing, but they're actually being excluded from cost rental being delivered by the AHBs or the Land Development Agency because the rents are now, on average with the LDA, $1,400 and increasingly on schemes $1,600 and $1,800 for the 2 or 3 beds. What we want to do is change the way in which these schemes are delivered. First of all, move to longer-term finance to ensure that the debt servicing payments are lower on an annual basis. We want to shift away from turnkey when you're buying full market land values and onto direct delivery, and also using building technologies, which when you do at scale, you get efficiencies in cost. And that will allow us, in our view, to bring the rents down to in and around €1,000, and in some cases below that. And the problem at the moment in Dublin is we have 4 AHBs, 4 local authorities and the LDA all trying to deliver cost rental, all competing to buy turnkey developments, pushing the prices and not achieving economies of scale. The Dublin local authorities are very interested in the idea of a single agency in Dublin, run by the 4 local authorities to deliver cost rental. It makes eminent economic sense, and it's something we're supportive of. So again, there's a couple of different versions of the slides, but just to talk you through the lower cost development and the higher cost development. What this slide does, and again, it's in your appendix, is it takes the same all-in development costs as the direct delivery on the affordable purchase from the first slide. First column, it applies 60-year finance at 3.5%. That's currently what the HFA is providing, we can only do it at 30 years. And it's also providing an affordable public housing fund contribution of 35%. The second column, it's a slightly higher rate of finance, because obviously you won't know until you go to the markets, and a higher affordable housing fund contribution. And what you see is in both of those, all in development cost 309, but your rents are coming down in the higher cost scenario 1,000, and in the lower cost scenario just shy of 900. But let's take a super expensive turnkey. So let's go back to that turnkey, maybe care delivering it in Honduras. All in development costs of 424,000 euros. Again, when we apply either the lower or the higher finance cost and a higher rate of public housing fund contribution, in recognition of the fact that land values are higher here, you're still able to bring those rents out. And what's really interesting about these contributions is the average contribution is actually significantly lower than the current state's outlays for cost rental. Final slide. What is the cost of this to the state over 5 years, the 50,000 homes? Based on figures from the Department of Housing, but also with some inflation estimates built in, it's about 13.2 billion over 5 years. That's an annual average expenditure of 2.64 billion. Last year, I think on affordable housing, the government spent about 200 million. So you can see the scale of the difference between what they're proposing and our levels of investment. Just over half of that comes from voted expenditure on budget day, that's 6.9 billion, and the other 6.3 billion is borrowed by approved housing bodies and local authorities, and the likes of the Housing Finance Agency, the Investment Bank, and others. And then we're working on a number of assumptions here, and you can only work on the most up-to-date data that you have, and as that changes, you amend plans. But we're working on the assumption of an all-in delivery cost, an average of 365,935 euros per unit. I think that's quite a conservative figure in the sense that you'll have seen direct delivery bringing them below that. We would have an average public housing fund contribution for the affordable purchase of 103,000 euros. On the cost rental side, 155,000 euros. Again, just to emphasise all of the costs, and we can give you the PQs if you want, and the most up-to-date information from the department. So what that shows is, it is absolutely possible to deliver homes, to rent or buy at the prices that we've set out. And unlike a government that spends huge amounts of money providing subsidies and grants to developers, we're actually investing in critical infrastructure like land to ensure that this and future generations of working people have the real opportunity to either rent or crucially buy a home at a price that can generate income.
Definitely McDonald. Sinn Féin have committed to phasing out the existing housing scheme. If you got into government tomorrow, can you just tell us how long you plan to retain them for? And then once they're removed, how is Sinn Féin going to support first-time buyers to build up a deposit?
So Owen has said to you, and I said in my own remarks, at the beginning of September we will be publishing a comprehensive 5-year plan, and of course the issue of supports for first-time buyers will be contained in that. We recognise that they need a particular level of attention and support, and we will announce all of that in due course. Today is about this affordable housing scheme, and as Owen has set it out, not alone is it deliverable at really affordable prices, it is a new approach to a huge problem. I mean, all of the commercial and economic interests across this city and beyond have told us, and they have to have told government in uncertain terms, that the private sector cannot lift this affordable housing piece, and the state has to intervene decisively. So this is our scheme, which marks a decisive and I think a transformational intervention, and it will make affordable homes to buy, but also to rent, actually affordable and within the reach again of working people. And the scale up of this is significant, the level of investment, the level of delivery. So this is what this morning is about, but just be very clear that we have good to go, early September, a 5-year comprehensive plan, and as Owen said, That has never been done before by an opposition party, but we think it is essential, given the centrality of this issue to people's lives and every part of it, and our social cohesion and our economic prospects, given that it will be the #1 issue for Sinn Féin in the general election, and if given our chance in government, we think it's important to publish even before there is a campaign underway. Remember, I think it took the current minister a year to come up with their plan. People don't have time now to wait any longer. We're in a situation of real stress and crisis in people's lives, and that needs to be addressed. And for us, a core component of that is those people who earn too much to qualify for social or council housing, if there were council houses to be got, but who are completely priced out currently of any prospect of purchasing their home, and indeed those people who will struggle and are struggling hard to afford rent, who have been promised affordable rental, cost rental homes, and it hasn't materialised. We know so many people who are living in that accommodation, and it is still a huge struggle. So this is the plan for that cohort. This is, we believe, the solution.
Mary, there were quick questions. What is the rationale for keeping the land in public ownership rather than just giving it away? Secondly, how do you deal with the problem of sheer public disbelief? You mentioned that the 300 grand average price home in Dublin earlier this year was met by a lot of disbelief. How do you deal with disbelief, and how might you address resistance from the permanent government if you were in power?
So I just think it's important that the full facts of the scheme are presented to the general public. I mean, I think Owen has made a very coherent, a very clear presentation of the scheme and how it would operate. I think I can also say on his behalf, and Pierce, myself, we have met, Owen in particular, with industry, with the approved housing bodies, with the financial institutions, their representative body. So a huge amount of work has gone into this. This is a scheme and a plan that can work, that will work, and this will be the hope for all of those currently locked out of affordability, that they can actually reach home ownership, that they can actually have a rent that is genuinely affordable. On the issue of the land, I'd just say make one remark, and Owen, why don't you step into the mic? On the issue of land, we're very conscious also that this is a very substantial investment by the state, and a very, very necessary one. So of course the interests of the state and the taxpayer equally have to be acknowledged and protected. And I think the great strength of this scheme is that it provides affordable homes to purchase and to rent in the here and now, but it also future-proofs, the scheme future-proofs, to create a stock of tradable homes that are permanently within that affordability paradigm. And I think that's a very, very significant thing. We're way behind other European jurisdictions in terms of having a future focus in terms of our housing stock and our housing supply. I mean, arguably, a lot of the difficulties that we face now for a decade has been because the Irish state and successive governments just failed to actually plan ahead and to have a scheme and a system that delivers now. That's the priority for now, but that also future-proof in the way that Owen's scheme does. Do you want to say something more?
A couple of brief comments. So, well, this is obviously a very new and innovative idea in an Irish context. It's quite common in other jurisdictions. And why do you retain ownership of the land? Land is finite. There's only a certain amount of it. And this government and its predecessors have been rightly accused of coming up with short-term supposed fixes to what are often very long-term problems. Affordability is going to be an issue not just for our generation, but the next generation and the generation after that. So we're going to invest the billions of euros that we proposed. We want to make sure that it's not just this generation of young people or folks approaching pension age that can have affordable homes, but that investment is in perpetuity, forever. And that idea that you have a private home ownership market, it'll function broadly the way it does now, although when we launch our plan in September, we'll show how we would activate and regulate that in a much more stable way. But you also have this other market, a market of privately owned, privately traded, permanently affordable homes. And what the state is doing is investing in the critical infrastructure, the land, the site servicing, and that's how the state guarantees in perpetuity the affordability. It will really transform the housing system. And keep in mind, there are huge numbers of people today who cannot afford to buy a home at all. In my parents' era back in the 70s, those people could buy homes. In the Celtic Tiger, albeit with very expensive, high-risk credit, they could buy homes. Today they cannot. For a single person in particular, but also a couple on 50, 60, even pushing up to 75, 80 grand, buying a home, particularly a new home, an A1 energy-rated home, in or close to where they want to live or work in rural or urban Ireland, is impossible. This is how you guarantee it for them and every subsequent generation.
Sorry, you put the signal. Sorry, you put the signal. Not you.
We'll come to you, don't worry, Joe.
Oh,
We wouldn't
it's
forget.
just an essential point Sam was asking. Just on the issue of levy waivers, and when you previously said that the levy waiver has not made homes cheaper to buy, and this document envisages a continuation of the government's levy waiver, is this a U-turn? Does the levy waiver, does the continuation confine itself to affordable homes, or is this more broad continuation? And then just secondly, Sinn Féin obviously has put housing front and centre of the critique of the government for years, and this is probably an attempt to put it back front and centre of the kind of discourse around the government's performance. And polling shows that housing is one of the public's chief concerns, yet Sinn Féin is sliding in the polls. How do you explain all those factors?
Well, shall I answer that one first? You see, I think you got it in the second clause of your question. People have put the issue of housing front and centre. It is the big, obvious social question and increasingly economic question of these times. I mean, any meeting that I have done with any business, large or small, with any trade union, with any community organisation, with any residents association, you can be guaranteed that housing, the quality of it, but also the availability of it, the cost of it, is top of the agenda.
But people don't seem to believe that Sinn Féin has the answer.
People, we're setting out now plans. Today it's about affordability, to purchase and to rent homes. We want people to see the choice that is available to them in that space. The government will stand on their record, poor as it is. We set out now our scheme. It's ambitious, it's deliverable, it's real, and it will prove, if implemented, and answered thousands and thousands of people who, as we speak, see no prospect for themselves to home ownership. That's my concern. The rest of the issues around public opinion and all of that will form and shape and move and change, but we have a responsibility as the leading party of opposition in advance of the election campaign to show the choice, to set out in detail the choice, because there will be a very important choice to be made whenever the election comes.
And also, Jack, as you know, the polls is usually people undecided. A very large number of people who didn't vote in the local elections who were voting in the general election. And I'm quite optimistic that we have enough time between now and the general election, whether it's at the latter end of this year or next year, when people see the detail of that, when they get to talk to us on the doors, we can regain that ground and convince people that they really want to change in housing. There is only one alternative. But obviously we have to do our job right between now and then. On the waiver, so the big problem with the government's waiver is it's incredibly expensive, almost 400 million euros. And they introduced it without any level of targeting at all. So that means if I'm a Greystar doing high-end build to rent, I get a development levy waiver of possibly 25,000 euros per unit. That doesn't translate into reducing rents for people who are paying Greystar development 2,500 to 3,000 euros. If I'm buying a home for Glenveagh Cairn, right, I'm paying top market, I'm not getting any benefit from that. And in fact, Glenveagh Cairn don't need that development levy waiver, utility connection waiver. So we've never said we're against waivers that are targeted for the purposes of delivering affordable homes, but we couldn't support a blank check where there's no benefit. That's been our big criticism. And what we're trying to do, I suppose, here, and we'll return to the wider issue of what we would do with the government's waiver when we publish the private residential development sector section of the document, is use a waiver in a very targeted way, and in some instances that reduces the purchase price of the home by 3,000, 4,000 or 5,000 euros. So targeted waivers linked to affordability, no problem. But a really expensive, untargeted blank cheque waiver, which is just more money into the pockets of very, very large developers or institutional funds, that makes no sense.
Richard.
Mary, obviously last week or 2 weeks ago, you launched your policy in terms of asylum seeker accommodation. You stressed there the need for an audit in terms of local services. In terms of building huge raft of homes, would there be a similar audit here? I mean, if there's going to be a need on demand and services from building 10,000 homes, obviously there will be an issue there as well. And secondly, do you think this will be enough then to dissuade, a lot of criticism? Obviously, I think Sinn mentioned the €300,000 figure, you mentioned that, an issue which has haunted you ever since. Do you think this is enough to persuade people who might, think that number is high on the side of this, it's incredible as a policy?
Well, it clearly is credible and deliverable, and we've run the numbers for you today. So I'll never be haunted by affordable housing figures, There was a debate around that figure. Could it be achieved? And the answer is it can be. The important thing is that it is. That's the issue here. For a lot of people, they may have gotten into almost a space where they believe that, look, my moment or my chance has passed. I'm never really going to own a house or have rent that I can cope with and that I can build a good life on. And I hope that this plan says very clearly to that set of people, and it is in the tens of thousands of people, that in fact there is an opportunity for you, that a pathway can be cleared for you to purchase an affordable home, to rent a home at an affordable rate. That's the important thing there. And I think we have to be careful in the public conversation, just as we're careful around issues in immigration, when it comes to housing, just to really understand the full resonance of this issue, because we have met countless, I have lost count of the number of young people in particular who have said to me very directly, if this doesn't get sorted out, I have no choice but to leave. And I find that I'm a parent of young adult children. I find that profoundly unacceptable. That is unacceptable in a prosperous country, that we leave so many people behind and locked out of any kind of chance of affordable housing. So this is our response, and we want people to really hear and to scrutinise, absolutely, to scrutinise the plan. Why would you not? But any suggestion that affordability can't be achieved simply because the current government haven't achieved it, that's just not true. It can be done. It hasn't been done, but it can be done. And we're setting out the detail today as to how that happens.
First question. So one of the big challenges in housing delivery is you have a bunch of other agencies. So you have the public utilities, water, roads, transport, and you obviously have other different departments like health and education. And we've spent a lot of time, both ourselves and our engagement with the public utilities, with private developers, with local authorities, but also in the Oireachtas Housing Committee, looking at how we fix this. We quite developed policy propositions, and then thankfully the Housing Commission have dealt with this in a very similar way. And like I said, I've met the Commission and we've adopted some elements of theirs to enhance our own proposals. Again, we're going to publish the full detail of that. But I suppose what I'll point you to is that section of the Housing Commission's report where they talked about a delivery agency. Now, it was foolishly dismissed by Darragh O'Brien straight away. He didn't even meet the Commission to talk to them about the proposal. I've met them. I think the idea has real merit. And the reason why it has merit is because we need a mechanism, both statewide and then within the regions, to coordinate and prioritise the capital investment programmes of those key actors. That means your public utilities, that means your public and private sector residential developers, but it also means the people providing the schools and the medical services. And there are really practical ways of doing that. Again, the full detail will be announced in September, but have a look at the Commission's report on that, because I think it's one of the really important bits of their work. And again, it shows we're listening to the experts, we're listening to people whose job it is day in day to deliver houses, roads, water, public transport, and trying to make sure the best of those policies are incorporated into our alternative plan.
Just one clarification of the four scenarios for the local authority.
Yeah.
The say we own this land, but where is it going to find the land to live with this first? Secondly, who's going to build them? Thirdly, what the size of these homes would you be? And pay for the costings or only blanket? I mean, there's 245,000 say local areas that 1, 2, 3 bed.
Sure, okay. So, first of all, where are we going to get the land, right? So we know from our existing city and county development plans there are very significant tracts of residential zone land out there. Those development plans, unfortunately, were based on the government's underestimation of housing need. The national planning framework is currently being reviewed. And in fact, I had an exchange with the Director of Planning Services of the Department and the committee Thursday before last, urging them to accept the Housing Commission's recommendations in the MPF review. That would then in turn translate into amendments to the zoned land within our development plans to ensure there's enough land, public, private, or rural. Where we get the land for these is 3 different places. So where it's direct delivery, it's public land. Some local authorities have healthy land banks. Other local authorities, for example, Meath, has very, very limited public land. Again, when we launched the full document in September, there's a whole section on land, active land management, and ensuring that there's a pipeline of land to meet the direct delivery. But there's certainly enough public land to meet the direct delivery for the first 2 to 2.5 years. But land will have to be required to supplement that. We need a single state agency, as I've been arguing for many years, to achieve that. With the Part 5s, as you know, are private developments, and the land comes with the home, but the local authority group housing body gets to buy it at a discount, so they don't pay full market value. Right now, there's planning permissions for more than 90,000 homes. There's planning permissions going through the system every year for 30 to 40,000 homes. So land for private sector development isn't an issue. In fact, when we talk to developers, other than in a couple of counties, the real issues around delays of planning permissions, tendering, procurement, etc. So I'm absolutely confident, even on the basis of the current development plans, that both in the Part 5 and the turnkey, the land is there. One of the things we have to crack is how we get more compact growth in urban cores, in large cities, in towns, and even in rural settlements. And again, I can't go through the detail today, but there's lots and lots of detail about how we will actually crack the viability challenge of increasing density, but in good quality, sustainable ways inside our cities and towns. So that actually lots of the land that's around us here could yield significant increases. Who's going to build them? So the overwhelming majority of these will be built by private building contractors. That's always been the way with public housing, and we're not proposing to change that. But again, when we launch the social housing section of the document, the public housing section more generally, we have a couple of innovative ideas in there as well. And again, I keep going back to the Housing Commission, but the Housing Commission have not only said we need 300,000 homes. They have set out a trajectory of going from 30,000 1 year to 40, then to 50, then to 60, 70,000 new built homes in 2029. And they're saying a large portion of that increase has to be social and affordable. When I talk to the Commission, these people who deliver homes, that's their professional business. And they're telling us that certainly to get up to 50,000 homes, we can afford it. The problem is we need to move beyond 50, and therefore in tier 3, 4 and 5 of the plan, we're going to have to grow the construction sector. And again, we'll detail exactly how that will be done in the alternative document. And then just in terms of these averages, right, just so you understand, so I have mountains and mountains of PQs, and I'm happy to share them with you. That goes into statewide averages, county-wide averages, breakdowns for 1 beds, 2 beds, 3 beds. What the bulk of these figures are is the department saying, so for example, if you take the first one, 3 to 9,700, that is the average all-in development cost for 1 beds, 2 beds, 3 beds, houses and apartments, where it's delivered by a local authority with a private building contractor on public land. What that probably means is it's probably an 80 to 85 square metre 2-bedroom family home in my backyard. That's probably what you're talking about as the average. Likewise, when we look at the ones where I talk specifically about local authorities, so the turnkeys, I have very detailed parliamentary questions from the departments telling us for your direct deliveries, for your turnkeys, for your Part 5s, give us the average all-in development cost broken down by the local authority. And again, that will have a range of 1 beds, 2 beds, 3 beds. Interestingly, the turnkeys in Dunedin and South Dublin will have more apartments in them than houses, right? And obviously apartments are more expensive. So those figures are aggregate averages either statewide or in local authorities. But if it's an average between 1, 2s and 3s, you can put it in the middle in terms of size. And then generally speaking, what size homes are we talking about? So there are very good guidelines from the Department of Housing for public housing delivery. 1 beds typically would be 50, 55, 7 square metres. 2 beds 80 to 85, 3 beds depending on the size of the family, 90, 95 to 100 square metres. That would be the kind of size they're talking about.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but Fine Gael had a ticker on their website for the last just shy of 225 days, saying the number of days which they tried to go public, promising €300,000 per home. Is there a reason why it's taking you so long to come up with this? Is it because there's an election in the next kind of 3 to 6 month period, and following, you've said yourself, you called the referendum wrong, you've criticised immigration. Is this plan and plan in September an acceptance that Sinn Féin needs to go back to basics? Basics is housing, that's how you are potentially going to win an election. And just on a separate matter, if you don't mind, I appreciate you may not have seen it, but RTE has published a register of external activities, but there is most of the information is redacted, so it's kind of giving bands, things, so between 26% of people who do external activities earn between €1, €1,000, and so on and so forth. So there's no names, there's no real details. Do you think that's enough transparency for organisations who can cost €725 million over the next couple of years?
The answer to that is no. But I haven't seen it, Louise, so I can't comment in great detail. But certainly, I think to be fully transparent, and then for that to be the aim, and then to redact so much material, I don't think that builds confidence in the information coming forward. So no, that's very unsatisfactory. But just on the housing thing, just remember, we've never stopped talking about housing. I mean, as a matter of fact, some of your great professional colleagues at times have commented that they had a pain in their head listening to us talk about nothing other than housing. So this has always been the core issue for us. And in the communities in which we live, when we're out and about meeting people, it's the issue. And as Martin has pointed out, it's not just a city issue. It's very much a rural issue as well.
Father and mother of so many problems.
Yeah. And just in terms of the timing, so we started working on this about a year ago, because we had to take a decision that we would do a 5-year plan. Again, nobody's ever done that before. When we got into the late summer, early autumn of last year, the word from the Housing Commission was there's a possibility they would publish their report before the end of last year. So we kind of held off, and then that was delayed to January and February, and then the Minister got it in March. So the reason why we're doing that, first of all, is because the Commission's report was being published at the end of May, and then I went to meet in June. And I'm glad, because actually we had published it last year, we've been overtaken by the Commission's research. Their research is very detailed. They've engaged with hundreds and hundreds of people and produced very significant documents. And then when we got the Commission's report, we also want to make sure we're going to project 5 years of public expenditure. We'd like the most up-to-date information on corporate finance. The summer economic statement came out in the middle of July. So really, I suppose the timing has nothing to do with those issues. It has to do with the Housing Commission's report, the summer economic statement. But actually now is a really good time to publish it, because we are heading into an election. People really want to know what's our proposals, what's our plan, how will we do things differently. And I'm really glad that we're publishing it now with the benefit of the expertise of the Commission, but also with some of the clarity around the fiscal parameters set out in the summer economic statement.
Darragh once emailed you looking for this plan for a couple of months. Do you email a copy?
What's really interesting about Darragh is he sends me lots of emails, and I would have thought, given that homelessness is at the highest levels in the modern history of the state, that house prices and rents are higher than they have ever been before, and that he misses every single target of his own, he will spend his time doing his job and not wasting his official's time emailing me for political stunts. This is too serious for the kind of nonsense that we get from Darragh. Darragh should do his job. He's had 4 years, he's shown he can't, he's failed, and that's why we're setting out a very clear and radical alternative so people can make up their minds. Do they want more of the same failed Fine Gael housing policy that's locked an entire generation of young people, not out of home ownership, but they're losing hope that they will ever be able to own their own home, that they have forced thousands and thousands of children into prolonged stays in emergency accommodation, or do they want a real, detailed, comprehensive, costed alternative? So I have to say, Darragh should get on with his job, because the amount of time he has in that office is getting ever shorter.
We will email it. I email it.
Sure, yeah.
I think part of my question was asked is related to private builders already. I know you said you met with lots of stakeholders. How do they receive your plans? And do they agree with the 300,000
There are lots and lots of building contractors who don't want to be developers, right? Because particularly the SME sector, they got badly run during the Celtic Tiger. They just want to build homes. They want to employ their men and women workers. And actually, what we're offering is a lot of work for those building contractors. And it used to be that radio stations would bring me and Tom Parlour from the Construction Industry Federation on because they think it would be a rap. And the vast majority of the construction industry want to do one thing: construct. So we're saying actually the total number of homes is going to double over the next 5 years. That's good news for good quality building contractors. But be clear, there's a role for the private residential development sector, and we set out how the Sinn Féin government would properly activate and support that sector in September. A lot of the ideas in that document have come from our dialogue with small, medium and large residential developers and builders. But this is about the public sector developer. This is about the local authorities, the approved housing bodies and the housing co-ops. But it's good news for builders, so long as they're building good quality homes, because we'll be providing them with a pipeline of work for the next 5 years, way beyond anything that they've had in the last 20 years.
So you'd see them as contracting to the likes of the city councils and towns?
Yeah, be very clear. The overwhelming majority of public homes that have been delivered in the history of the state have been delivered with private building contractors. They're not developers, they're builders, and they typically charge a very reasonable margin. We do have some ideas around public sector, what usually called direct delivery. We'll talk about that in September. But right now, we need to get these builders building good quality homes that families can afford, consider affordable housing, social housing, but also through private housing for people to buy. And therefore, I would have thought any builder looking at this would be going, that's kind of interesting.
Sorry, so the road to your document wasn't paying attention to the issues. I was only following up what Sinn was saying. Just your forward home scheme, am I right? You never quite owned as an asset to sell on. That's correct.
So it depends what you mean. Legally, so let's talk in law, because it's about what you own under law. The house is yours, so you own the house. The issue is when you sell the house, you sell it to another qualifying affordable purchaser, eligible under the affordable purchase scheme at the future affordable purchase price. And that affordable purchase price will be the price you pay for it, but obviously index linked inflation, wage inflation, but also any improvements that you've made to the property. So can you sell it into the private market, like a private market home? No, you can't. But can you sell it to another affordable purchaser at any stage? Of course you can. And the idea of that is you guarantee that kind of second generation, third generation, fourth generation affordability. But they are two separate markets. One is the private market as we currently understand it, the other is the affordable purchase market, which sits alongside it.
And for some people in the lifetimes of their families, they may be, in an affordable house for a period of time, and then they might sell up and move on or into the private market. So it allows for all those flexibility. The house is yours.
And also crucially, trade up and down within it. So people can move from affordable purchase to private purchase. But also if we build up a big enough stock of these, which is what we would like to see, is that over the life cycle, people then could buy and trade up and trade down as their family size changes. And again, keep in mind, 70% of first-time buyers currently can't afford a new home, even with all of the demand-side subsidies. We want to give new home ownership to people who today simply cannot afford it. And therefore, what's really important about this is all those people today don't have any choice or option to buy a home. It will become a reality in this time.
Okay, last question.
Really, my question is around financing of this. So the one thing that straight out to me was Department of Finance has done some work around available financing, and they said that 80% were coming from institutional or external funds. In the plan here, that's 47% coming from non-budget expenditure. Will Sinn Féin and others really turn the tap off on institutional investors and using much more taxpayers' money to finance home building as opposed to institutional?
Well, we've indicated that we're going to ramp up significantly public investment. I think that much is clear. Also, the issue of institutional investment. The problem has always been the cuckoos sweeping in, not building anything, but acquiring homes that have been built, holding them and then renting them out at levels and rates that are just beyond the reach of ordinary families. And we've seen this, I'm thinking of memory now, I remember the case in Kildare. I mean, you've seen it all over. That's an issue. When we set out the plan around the private market, private development, of course there is a space for institutional money. Of course there will be. But we do not want these kind of vultures coming in and monopolising properties, forcing hugely eye-watering levels of rent in the market, because that in itself is also locking people out of home ownership or even affordability in the private space around rentals. I could give you chapter and verse from my own neighbourhood, and I scratch my head and I wonder how, in particular, younger workers and families make that work at all. I mean, it's insane.
Let me just deal with the Department of Finance report, right? So, because there's some confusion around this report. Obviously, when they talk about development finance, they're talking about the money that's spent during construction. Part of the problem with the current government's plans is that, in fact, they don't provide very much development finance at all. They allow private sector development finance, which is often very expensive, and then they purchase those units. So if you look at the 8,500 people social homes delivered last year, 80% of them were built with private development finance, either turnkey or Part 5, which the state then buys. That means the state is actually paying for the higher cost of development finance. So first of all, on the public housing side, we want the money that the state is investing to be invested much earlier as development finance. This is something we've been talking with the private sector about. And the value of that is that then frees up the private sector finance that would have otherwise been used to build more private sector homes. Of course we need private sector development finance for private homes, but why would the state pay double the cost of finance to buy a turnkey when the state could provide the development finance for that at the start and reduce the all-in cost? So it's about more state finance and the right kind of private sector development finance.
But I guess what I'm kind of getting at is that when your overall plan really focus on billions more investment of direct exchequer funding and then reduce that level of institutional investment. And then will that mean that you'll be willing to run a budget deficit to meet that needs, or would costs have to be put elsewhere?
So when we launch the full plan, we get full visibility in the spread, because we're going to give you a small portion of the overall capital spend. If we want to do 75,000 social homes a year, if we want to tackle, for example, defective block, Celtic building defects, the overall capital spend is big. We'll deal with that in great detail in the full launch. But what I'm saying is, one, in terms of delivering the kind of ambitious public housing program we're talking about, the overall level of state investment in development capital is going to have to be far greater. Some of that is currently being spent as purchase rather than development. Of course, if we're going to have the very large increase in private purchase homes from private residential developers, plus if there's going to be some stuff into the private rental sector, private finance has to be there as well. But as you well know, there are different kinds of private finance. There's long-term, low-yield finance, which can deliver more moderated prices in the private sector. And then there's the very high-yield speculative finance, which is the stuff that's driving rents and house prices of €20,000 a month and £500 million. So it's about both the public and the private sector doing more, but doing it better. And crucially, you are going to see a very significant increase in development capital, and we'll give you all the clear answers around deficits and surpluses in the September launch.
Do you have any projections on that sort of scale of delivery of social housing having any impact on costs in the private sector, or will it make anything?
So first of all, in terms of the 75,000 single social homes for 5 years, that obviously is social homes, so it doesn't have an impact on private market pricing. Clearly, if you're delivering a very large volume of affordable rental and affordable purchase, over time that is going to have a moderating impact on prices in the private sector. But it's going to be very gradual, it's going to be very moderate, and it's very difficult to predict. So nobody can say what the longer term impact will be. What's more important, and we'll get into this in September, is that we need to work with the private residential development sector for that sector to deliver far more private homes to buy and some to rent, good quality homes at more moderated prices, and there's a range of ways of doing that. And when we talk to the private residential development sector, they're really open and interested in that. So the impact of the public housing, yes, there's an impact, but it's slow and gradual and not possible to predict. But ultimately, we have to stop private house prices rising. They've gone completely out of control, and in September we'll set out how we're going to do that.
Mary, what do you think, Anderson?
What do you mean you behave yourself?
Is this policy a red line issue for Sinn Féin in coalition? Because you're more than likely to be in coalition if you are successful at the next election. Or is it adjustable downwards?
Solving the housing crisis has to be the core objective of the next government. It is absolutely a red line. I would expect and hope that it is a red line for everybody and anybody who's going to contest the election whenever it happens.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Very much, everybody.